But our next guest is a wonderful person. I'm glad to have him. You wouldn't know this if you read about him from, I hate to use the term mainstream media. It's kind of a trope. Pretty much all dishonest media, which is most media outside of ourselves. We're the only ones you can trust. You know, don't read anything else. Don't educate yourself on opposing viewpoints. Just watch this show. TR.news. Tommy Robinson, it's been a spell. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm good.
Well, I know that question is sort of rhetorical because for people who don't know, and you've been on the show the first time you were on the show must have been at least 2 years ago, right?
Yep, it was a while ago, and a hell of a lot's happened, isn't it?
Yes, and you've already done some time in jail since then. And here's one thing I want to make sure before we go through this timeline, because it is unbelievable. You know, a lot of people go out there right now with this sort of martyr victim complex, and you do see it from the right as well. But when I read about your situation in the news, and every time I read a development, I go, oh my God, I've never seen this kind of a railroading just because of someone's point of view, basically from his government. So let me just make sure I have this correct. I try to compile it on a timeline. August 1st, Lord Chief of Justice of England and Wales threw out your conviction. You were released from prison. This brings us to, you were on the show, Panorama is a media, there was this coordination between leftist organizations. Is it Hope Not Hate contacted the BBC where they were trying to create a story to blackmail you and speak with former employees of yours. But they didn't know that you were taping them, that these employees were talking with you, you were taping these people as they were basically putting together a hit job. And then because you released some video evidence of said hit job, now you're back in hot water and facing more jail time. Is that the general timeline? Correct me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's the general timeline. Panorama were working with like an NGO organisation called Hope Not Hate, whose sole purpose and everything they do, they're a George Soros funded organisation to attack anyone who goes against open borders and immigration. And their job, for years, I have been the focal point of their job. I found out they were working hand in hand with Panorama, the BBC's flagship, most respected documentary there is. In them, that is the documentary that brings the truth.
So, no, real quick, Panorama, is that like a documentary series for Americans who don't necessarily know?
Yeah, it's a documentary series. It's their flagship show, Panorama. They will find the truth. They are known throughout the world as wearing undercover footage and really bringing out the truth of what's going on.
Right.
So when I found out that Panorama were working with Hope Not Hate, straight away the alarm bells were going straight away. Because Panorama should be independent. The BBC should be independent. To be working with a far-left organisation who are named in Swedish military reports of left-wing extremist organisations. They're an organisation who have over-exaggerated hate crime statistics by 3,000%. They're a dishonest organisation, and they're working with Panorama. And then I found out and started getting told that they were contacting and blackmailing my former employees. Basically, two of my former employees, when they left working with Rebel Media, they worked and were receiving funds, I believe, off of Hope Not Hate in order to bring down Rebel Media.
Okay.
So, but no one knew this. So these two boys who left Rebel Media then got a job with me. Obviously, if I'd have known and everyone would have known that they'd been working with Hope Not Hate, it wouldn't stand very well for their careers.
Right.
So Hope Not Hate then sat them down, blackmailing them, saying that unless you agree to take him down, this is the minute I went to jail is when they got really involved, and basically started threatening and blackmailing these two former employees to work with them and bring Tommy down. And
then when did they come to you? When did you find out? And was it these same employees who helped I guess, sting? It's almost like every heist movie you see where it's like, I got the gold. It's like, no, you have the fake bar. I got the real one. It's very hard to follow. When did they come to you, these former employees, and let you know that this was afoot so that you could start recording these people yourselves?
So they didn't. What I found out was that what they were doing with Hope Not Hate was setting up secret cameras as though they were secret cameras. Then they were sitting having conversations about me. So then it could be said that this recording was undercover footage. And then it wouldn't put the two said employees in a difficult position, because it would seem like they were having a conversation about me, about my finances, about my life, all these sorts of things. And then another former employee, I then received a letter from Panorama. I was aware, in fact, I was terrified, to be honest, if I'm honest, when I found out. I was aware that all these things were going on, that something was happening. and then another former employee called Lucy Brown, who we absolutely fell out. We absolutely fell out very publicly.
Sure.
She stopped working for me. When I received the Panorama letter, she had contacted me to say that she had been contacted by Panorama. And then I went to see her. That's when I started filming. So I went to see her and said, how am I here? Because the last thing I said to you was screaming some pretty uncomfortable abuse at you.
Well, no one's perfect.
No. So that's the last time I spoke to you, Lucy. So tell me why I'm here. And she said, she said she was that annoyed with me. She had my prison number tattooed on her wrist, yeah. She was that annoyed with me. So we really fell out, yeah. But then she said that I've been contacted by Panorama, and it seems that they just want me to say negative things about you. And she said, well,
regardless of, and what's important here is regardless of level of truth, correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. She said that she had been offered money, financial money, £5,000. She'd been offered money for a front page story as well. All this work is with Hope Not Hate, working with these groups. And the story was to paint me as Harvey Weinstein. Right. To paint me as obviously, when I'm hearing this, I'm thinking, oh my God, yeah? Yeah. And then I find out, so then basically we come up with an idea for her to send herself a fake text message. I don't know if you've watched the documentary, but also then for her to go and meet the face of Panorama, a man called John Sweeney. And for her to wear undercover cameras. And what we found after one meeting with him was that he said they would clip footage. She said she has dictaphone recordings of me and her arguing. And that in the recording, she goes absolutely mad at me and chasing after my car. And he says, don't worry, we can clip that bit out.
Right.
And then he says, do you know what I can do with this? I can make this into a sexual thing against Tommy Robinson. And I'm listening to it like, oh.
And I want to make sure people understand just for the timeline, because it is important, because now it comes back to you with obviously facing potentially more jail time. I think it was in February 23rd, you aired some of this footage. I think it was in Manchester to an audience of thousands of people. And right after this footage was uploaded to YouTube, Facebook, that's when you were completely deplatformed, along with multiple accounts that even shared it. And I can say this, I want to give you the floor. We had something very similar when we just went undercover. You went undercover at South by Southwest. And it's in a single party consent state, and it just made fun of it was like a queer intersectional panel. It was comedy. Weird, but anyone who posted our video was suspended on Twitter. So I've had this experience to a much lesser extent. But do I have that right? You then aired this footage, which sort of vindicated, or at least told the truth, and then gone?
And then gone from Facebook, and not just gone, but gone with complete lies as to why they've removed me. Gone from Facebook, gone from Instagram. The timeline, so that people understand, when I was put in prison on the 25th of May, which was for reporting outside of a court case. When I was in prison, 30,000 people marched in London, 600,000 British citizens signed a petition to have me released. There was a Free Tommy movement that grew.
Right.
It was at this time that Panorama were instructed to do a hit on Tommy Robinson. It was at that moment that then, because they could see that my, whether you call it notoriety or my support had that the idea of silencing me in prison had the adverse effect. Right. I was coming out of prison to a mass movement of people who were now listening to me. And you can see by my video results that I'd started to do, that they were going far and wide. And it seems that Panorama then had been instructed, bring him down, working alongside Hope Not Hate. I produced my video, which completely proves with evidence that they will lie and create news.
Well, that's also, by the way, that's also validated by what's his name, Mohammed. Is it Mohammed what's his name? Mohammed Shafiq. He's a BBC guy. Didn't he admit on Twitter that he had a meeting with Facebook to have you removed from the platform?
He did, yeah. He had a meeting with Facebook. He says he had a meeting with Facebook, and it's worked. I've been removed. I just watched the footage yesterday of Channel 4 in Britain sitting down interviewing the head of Google, and they're saying to him, why has Tommy Robinson got a platform? I'll be gone off YouTube very soon, 100%. Labour politicians, free Labour politicians, there's a video of them sitting with the CEO of YouTube. This was a year ago. And they're saying to him, why is Tommy Robinson on your platform?
And I want to be clear about this. This is important for people to understand. It's a different situation with you in the UK than it is for Americans because the government is trying to exert political pressures because they don't like what you're saying. As much as people don't like Donald Trump is not making calls to Susan Wojcicki saying, all right, I want you to get Jake Wigger removed off YouTube. And he wouldn't be able to anyways. We don't have those kinds of hate speech laws in the United States. It's different with your country, just like it's different in the way Twitter would handle dissent, I think, with China. There have been multiple cases of them basically acquiescing to authoritarian governments. But I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Your sentence was, I don't want to misspeak legally because I don't want to get you in trouble, but it was thrown out, and now is it the same case as before that you're being retried for?
Yeah, so it was thrown out, and it was thrown out by the head judge of the whole of Britain, yeah? The top man.
Yeah.
And when he threw it out, he absolutely tore it to shreds. He said that I wasn't asked if I was guilty or not guilty. It was a completely flawed trial. It wasn't a trial. I was sent straight to prison without any opportunity. I hadn't even been told what I'd done.
Right.
I was taken off the street. 5 hours later, I was spending 30 months in prison without my own league representation, without the opportunity. So that was thrown out. And
what's the justification for the retrial on that case? Because you're not. I think your court date is sometime in March, and it's not regarding this taping of this BBC of this panorama. It's the same case as before that was thrown out.
It is that by standing outside the court and asking the 10 now convicted child rapists how they felt about their sentence, that I caused them anxiety.
Right. No, I remember that. But what's the justification on what are they saying is a justification for retrying you now since it was thrown out? That's what I don't understand.
So it was thrown out. And when it was thrown out, it was then put to the Old Bailey. So it was thrown out and the judge said it wasn't fair. It wasn't done properly. Do it again. I then went to court 3 more times. I was supposed to stand trial. So I've been to 3 court appearances at the highest court again in the land. That court only deals with counter-terrorism, really, and mass murders. And here it is dealing with me.
And Tommy Robinson.
Yeah. Me holding up my phone. And when I put my argument to the judge, which was my evidence to say, actually, this is what's happened. When he read my thing the day of my trial, he just said, I can't hear this. Because essentially, what I went to prison for, what they said, was for breaching a reporting restriction.
Right.
I showed him court transcripts from the judge from the same trial showing that 3 other journalists breached the same reporting restriction the same weekend, and none of them have faced prosecution. Okay. I then gave him comparables to show that basically everything that's happened here is political. And the minute I get the opportunity to speak in court, I'm listing every single one of these points, and everyone's going to hear them. Yeah. And so he said, he didn't want it. As soon as he'd read that, he sent it back to the government. So for 5 months, it's been with the government. I feel
like there needs to be a Schoolhouse Rock episode, like the equivalent to, the bill on the Capitol steps, only how to send Tommy Robinson to prison, where people understand the branches of government and how it gets done. Here's, I guess, my question, because obviously
this is all unheard of. This has never happened.
No,
ever.
Of course, it's like we've talked about with Dinesh D'Souza, who did do the campaign finance violation, but he's the only one who did the time that he did for that. Is the law applied equally? That is really an important measure of a free society. Now, from an outside viewer, obviously I look at this and I know about Panorama in the documentary, and as soon as you run it, boom, Facebook, Instagram, you're off. It's no longer there. And then the retrial. Do you think, so I look at it and go, well, hold on a second, this seems really suspicious. It seems as though they're tied. So before we see if that's even the case at all, I want to hear your opinion on that. I do want to ask, what was their justification for removing you from Facebook? So we now kind of know how they justified sort of this retrial. Why did they remove you from Facebook?
They said continued violations, yeah? That's what they said. They said that I was warned a month ago, a lie. They also said that my posts they said that I posted, this is what's bad for me. They said that I posted behead those who follow the Quran. Never.
No.
And if I did, it would be I'd be arrested in this country for that.
Yeah.
And it would be all over the news. Every journalist is like, well, where's the screenshot of this? If I posted it, and that lie has gone around the world.
Yeah.
And then they use that and these hate. We obviously, as you understand.
So to be clear for people watching, you do not want to behead everyone who follows the Quran.
To be clear, Your Honour,
This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it's absolutely terrifying.
it.
Do you think that these things are tied? Do you think that there's something? Okay.
So Nick Clegg, who worked with Mohammed Shafiq. Nick Clegg used to be the deputy leader of my country. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick Clegg is a complete apologist for Islam. He always has been. Islam is my subject that I talk about a lot. Mm-hmm. And he has always been an apologist. When he was in second in command, Nick Clegg is now in charge of communications for Facebook. Okay. So Nick Clegg is one of the main men for global communications of Facebook.
Right.
The minute I done a documentary, and my documentary categorically proved to everybody that the BBC is fake news, that the most flagship and most prestige program they have, and there's a lot of histories of Panorama, they're absolutely on a pedestal, has just been from underneath it. And I've showed undercover footage showing them creating news, ready to fake news. So your viewers understand the discussion that was dictaphone recorded by me and the female Lucy, that he said he could make into a sexual thing, was a discussion about a Muslim bloke. It was nothing about sexual. So it was about.
Wait, was it a conversation about a Muslim bloke who was doing something oddly sexual?
No, it was a conversation about whether it was a conversation about whether this Muslim bloke should have been invited to speak at a free speech event or not. And then he says, we can clip that, we can edit that, and we can make this into a sexual thing against Tommy Robinson.
Where can people watch this footage really quickly?
It's on my YouTube channel. If you go on tr.news, you'll see a link. It's Panodrama. The problem is, when you say, I didn't just get deleted by Facebook, you're not allowed to talk. Stephen, if you go on and put anything about Tommy Robinson on Facebook, it will be removed. Anything. I have become, and you can go on and put, and at the same time
I might need to change the live stream settings after today.
It'll be removed, 100%. You'll get community guidelines removal, 100%. So everyone who's followed me, when I'm removed, and I said it's not a fluke, I'm going back up into court, I'm going back to prison, yeah? And the last time, a mass movement on social media grew. Not now it won't, because you can't, because you're not even allowed to talk about it. Because you will be removed, you will have your account closed. And at the same time as this, Amazon, who have been selling my best-selling book for 2 years, removed the book. So Mohammed's Quran...
What's their justification for that? Again, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate a little bit here. What did they say the reason was?
They didn't give a reason. They completely deleted it. It's like from history, like it's just gone. And that's a book. So Amazon removed... You can still buy Mein Kampf. You can buy Hitler's book. You can't buy Tom Robinson's. You can praise Hitler on Facebook. You can't even talk about Tommy Robinson. Now that is for me, it's quite I'm winning, or I was winning, because I've annoyed you lot that much. And in this country, we have strict laws.
Here's why I think that is, and I want you to, but here's why I think that is. First off, let me ask you a couple of questions, as though I'm cross-examining you. I'm preparing you here for your retrial. Do you hate Muslims?
No, not at all.
Do you advocate violence against Muslims?
In fact, quite the opposite. You know,
let me just go real quick because I want to make a point here. Do you advocate violence against Muslims?
Never.
Do you hate Jews?
No, never.
Blacks?
No, never.
Do you consider yourself a sexist, homophobic, I don't know, white supremacist of any kind, or would you reject those titles?
I despise white supremacy.
Okay, I want to make sure that I get that clear, and here's why I think they deplatform people like you or remove you, is because it's easy to say, oh, Hitler's bad, so we can just study it, right? Create this boogeyman. But if someone like you is out there expressing opinions and you're effective and there's a movement and there's a groundswell behind you and they go, hold on a second, if people really knows what Tommy Robinson believes, everything that you've just stated right now, they go, he might actually make some headway here, so let's remove him. Let's leave the crazy white supremacists on there with swastikas. Let's leave them under the guise of free speech so people think we're not shadow banning anybody, but let's get rid of the people who are actually affecting change. I think that's what it is.
I agree. I agree. I think that when they looked at my figures and they looked at the response and they looked at the engagement, for example, I think as a political figure, I had 1.2 million people on Facebook, and my engagement, if I went live, it was 30,000 people watching it live straight away. The engagement in the comments, it was what Theresa May or Jeremy Corbyn could dream of with the engagement with the British public, and they know that, and they know the ability we had to bring people. And do you know what it is? Because essentially they prove everything, so people now can see it. They can see we've been removed. People who follow my story, people who know me, And thousands now, tens of thousands, if not millions, have followed the story. Every question you just asked me, they fully know my views and how strong they are.
Yes, I know they know it, but I want to make sure that this is expressed on this show where we have a significant viewership and reach, and they're not going to be taking down this show. I guarantee that maybe Facebook will, but YouTube won't. And the difference with the American government and governments in the UK is they, for example, we've been throttled. And Corda Black Garrett knows this, where we used to get tons of live viewers on Facebook, and this was released in the James O'Keefe sting, where they actually had back-end code to throttle. They'll throttle our page. They'll eliminate our reach, but they can't ban us because they aren't necessarily in cahoots with the government. Not that we've proven that, but obviously, like I've said, if you look at the history of social media and they're working with governments, they do tend to acquiesce. Final question, we do have to go, so it's gone longer than I anticipated. Is there anything, because you know right now they're doing their Oppo research, they're just trying to find any dirt on you that they can. Kind of pulling a rabbit in 8 Mile here. Is there anything that you would want to cut off at the pass? Is there anything that you think they might try and release on you as dirt that you're concerned about, or they might take out of context?
No, the only thing they had was drunk banter amongst me and my friends, which they've already tried to kill with that. Which the response to it was exactly that. It was from a WhatsApp group of friends. It's exactly that. Stephen, you know what I'd ask? If you could possibly have time, when I stand trial, I understand it's not going to be on the 22nd. I just found out today it's going to be put back.
Okay.
For your First Amendment, if you come and visited and you watched in court and heard what's happening, and then when you get back to your country, by God, fight to keep that first, because you don't understand. You would see a country without freedom, and a man without freedom, and people without freedom, and to know what it's like to keep that and defend it. And make sure it stays, because essentially, bro, I'm going to be sent back to prison for standing outside a courtroom and telling people what people are in court for. Right. That's it. That's it.
And by the way, I want to be really clear. People will go and watch this video and they'll say, oh, it seemed really caustic. And Tommy Robinson seemed like he was harassed. They might say, some people might say this. Okay, I don't necessarily know that I agree with him. I don't care. If it's a convicted rapist in the United States, you can say outside, you can't go in the courtroom, you can videotape the guy if it's on public property or if it's a single-party consent state and say, hey, man, you're a rapist, you're a piece of shit, and guess what? People don't have to like it, but you can say it. And I know where you're coming from. I'm from Canada. We don't have the same freedom of speech as the United States. I said alleged. I said these men could be innocent until proven guilty. I said everything so that I didn't assume their guilt. I said they could walk out there with a not guilty sentence. I also said on the video that I've got Muslim friends I've grown up with who would hate these men for this crime. Yeah, This isn't all Muslim men, okay? But there is a massive epidemic in this country where a generation of our daughters have been taken as sexual slaves. 90% of the men convicted are Muslim. They only make up 4% of the UK. There's a problem. Let's try and get to the bottom of it. You know, I'll say the same thing in the United States. Obviously, not all immigrants, but there's a disproportionate problem of sex trafficking at the borders now, and it is coming largely through the Mexican-American border. And we've talked about, Donald Trump talked about that at the State of the Union, and that's where Cortez and I believe Warren, I don't remember, they wouldn't even stand up and clap until they were instructed to. All right, it is tr.news, correct? And your YouTube channel is still up for the time being, but tr.news is the best place for people to go where they can probably find all information on you and it can't be taken away. Mr. Robinson, let's make sure it is not too long before you come back as soon as you can after this court hearing. Man, prayers to you and your family.
I've got a court hearing that ends tomorrow where I'm suing the police about harassment to my kids. But if that comes through, then we'll chat again because it'll be big news.
Okay, absolutely. Well, listen, thank you, sir. Be as safe as you can and appreciate all that you do.
Thank you, man.
Am I the reason you get stoned every week now? Build up integrity, got you texting, emailing me, wanting me to feel with you. Baby, just face reality, move on.
Sometimes it's hard to face reality.